everyone to Daf Yomi, 1 week at a time, Masechet Bava Batra. This is our 19th class. And today we are going to be reviewing Daf 127 through 134. The beginning of this Daf begins with the topic of a tumtum. A tumtum is someone who is born with their genitals covered and they're indeterminate. Their sex is indeterminate. Because of that, they are not seen as male or female in halakha, in Jewish law. And therefore, our Gemara teaches us that even if later on they uncover that the person is actually male, if the person was the firstborn, they still do not get the birthright, the bechorah. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Right, the bechorah, the birthright is given to a son that is born, right? So he has to be male when he's born. He also can't be what's called a ben sorer umoreh, which means a child who is rebellious against their parent. The Torah speaks about the consequences of being very rebellious. And this is only to a boy. And therefore, if it's a tumtum, then it doesn't count. Also, he can't have a brit milah. Again, if we determine that really he is male, he cannot have a brit milah on Shabbat. The idea is that only a child that's born male can have a brit milah on Shabbat, because really you're not supposed to have a brit milah on Shabbat, but the fact that it must be done on the 8th day supersedes the laws of Shabbat. But for this child, that would not be the case, and therefore the brit milah would be on a Sunday. Also, the mother who gave birth to this child is not impure, again, because we're not sure if she had a boy or a girl, and the Torah tells us that depending on if it was a boy or a girl, that's how long the mother is impure, because this child is neither, at the time of birth, is neither male or female, so then she does not have that extra impurity. Interestingly, there's a braita that says that if a woman miscarries a tumtum, so then she's actually impure as if she had a boy and a girl. And therefore, the Gemara says, well, when there's a doubt, we're going to be more stringent. Okay, only, right, again, so then the Gemara tells us on 127, right, only a definite bechor, a definite firstborn, gets the birthright. Again, when I use the word birthright, I don't think it's clear. I mean getting what the Gemara calls the bechorah. Bechorah means that you're getting that firstborn son gets a double portion, right? So if there were 3 children, right, let's say there were 3 sons, they divide the estate into 4, right, where the bechor gets 2 portions and everyone else gets 1 portion. Okay, so when I'm going to use the word bechorah means getting an extra portion above what everyone else is getting. Again, if there is a doubt if this child is the firstborn, so then they will not get the bechorah. What does that mean? There's a doubt. Let's say 2 women gave birth at the same time, and then they mixed up the babies. They weren't sure which child is which. Right? If they were originally identified, then the Gemara teaches that you can actually do this like a deal where they each write a document. It's called harsha'ah. They each write a document saying, right, if I'm the bechorah, so like I'll share it with you. If you're the bechor, then if I'm the bechor, I'll share it with you. If you're the bechor, then I'll share it with me. And therefore, the document is that I give you the authority to collect the double portion for me, right? And vice versa. And then they can like get it and decide to split it if they want. But if they were never originally identified, so then they can't do this deal. Let's say one son was always referred to as the firstborn, right? And this is the idea of chazaka. If you remember, we've done this before. The halachic assumption is this child is the firstborn. Then all of a sudden, the father wakes up one day and he says, "Oh no, right? Reuven isn't the Bechor, Shimon is the Bechor." So then the Gemara says they can write that document that we had before, and then they can collect it. Because here it's a safek. We have a doubt if the father has the right to claim something that goes against a chazaka. Remember, chazaka is our assumption, a legal assumption. The question is, can the father go against this legal assumption? Again, the Torah says that the father, it says yakir, he will recognize, right? He has to recognize who the Bechor is, who the firstborn is. So Rabbi Yehuda says the father has the right to identify the Bechor. The Chachamim say he can't do it if it goes against the chazaka, right? If they've grown up for 10 years and he's always called Reuven his firstborn, he can't after 10 years now say, "Oh, for a certain reason, I didn't want to tell you, but really Shimon is the firstborn," right? He can't just change something that was already established. Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, he has the ability to change a status, even if it's already been, 10 years. The sages say that what's the word yakir? What does it mean that he'll recognize? It means that the father can identify the child that's the firstborn when there's no chazaka, right? A new family walks into town and they have 3 kids. He's allowed to say, "Hi, everyone, I want you to meet Reuven. He's my firstborn, and then Shimon, and then Levi." Right? So nobody knows which is the firstborn. The father has the right to say which is the firstborn. But if they've been living in town for 10 years and everybody knows Reuven is the first child, he can't now say, "Oh, just kidding, really it's Shimon." Right? Again, that's a machloket. Chachamim say he can't. Rabbi Huda says he can. Okay. Okay. If the father says, right, "This is my son," and then he says, like a week later, "Actually, he's my slave." So then we say he's not believed. We say that the second contradictory statement is not valid. But if he says, "This is my slave," and then afterwards he says, "This is my son," then he's believed. The idea is that we say that because he was saying, really, he serves me like a slave, but really he's my son. It's not necessarily contradictory, right? The opposite is the case for taxes, right? If he tells the tax collector the opposite, so then we believe him, right? Because there's no taxes on children, but there are taxes on slaves. So obviously he would want he would want the person to think that he's his son and not a slave, right? And then the Gemara, I think interestingly, like the psychology behind it, right? The Gemara says a person would never call a slave his son. One could argue you wouldn't call your son your slave, but the Gemara doesn't say that. Let's say a person claims, "You stole my slave." And he says, "No, I didn't." And he says, "So why is he in your house?" And he says, "Because you sold him to me," right? Or "You gave him to me." And the other person says, "Okay, fine. You swear that you didn't, and then you can take him," right? So then the owner can swear and take the slave back. And then the other person is not allowed to retract that offer. That is on Daf 128. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So too, okay, so now we have a whole list of statements that Rabbi Abba said, and he made these rulings. So let's say a plaintiff, based on what we just said, let's say a plaintiff offers to waive the rights, or right, he says, I'm going to listen to whatever the judge says. He's not allowed to retract that statement. Just like we just said, if a person says, you can swear that this slave is yours and then you can take him, the same thing is the case here. There's a machloket if the defendant makes an extra legal offer, meaning something outside of court, to waive his rights. Can he retract that or not? There's also a machloket if you can collect debts from slaves that are left in the estate, right? Let's say a collector comes and says, your father owed me money, and they say, we don't have any money left. And he says, oh, I see there's a slave, maybe I'll take him. Another statement that Rabbi Abba made was that a distant relative can testify for somebody, right? Meaning we know that, let's say, a brother, an immediate relative is not allowed to testify for their immediate relative. But if they're a distant relative, then that would be okay. There's actually a machloket, what's the distance, right? How far do you have to be in order for your testimony to be valid? There's a machloket if a person knew about some land and then, right, so he had some testimony about land and then the witness became blind. There's a machloket if that person can testify about it now, right? We know, obviously, if a blind person can't testify that they saw someone kill so-and-so, right? Obviously, they didn't see it. But what if they saw it and then they became blind? Can they testify now or not? Speaking of testimony, if you know testimony, again, and then after that happened, whatever the case is, something happens, and then you become a relative to that person. Right now, we just said, right, you can't testify for a relative, but what about if you're testifying about something that happened before you were related, right? Or again, they became deaf, or they went insane, or they're blind. So the Gemara actually says they cannot testify anymore because at this current stage, they are not valid witnesses. But if these things became reversed, right, meaning if they were, let's say they had full capacity, then they were diminished in capacity, and then they returned to full capacity, they could testify. And we don't say that because they couldn't testify in the middle, that makes the testimony invalid. So again, the rule is if at the beginning and the end you're a valid witness, so then it is a valid testimony. If not, then it's not. A man can say, now again, we were talking about a man making a statement and they're believed about their son being the firstborn. So now the Gemara continues that a man can say, my wife will get a share of my estate like my sons. Remember, we said in general, inheritance goes to the sons. It does not go to the wife. It doesn't go to the daughter. But the man can say, I want my wife to get a share in the estate. And it's only valid for whatever is in his possession when he dies. But right later on, it includes children that are born after. Right. So again, his children, right, as long as it's his child, they will inherit him, even if they were born after he died. Rabbi Abba also sent the following statement that a person tries to collect a loan, and then the borrower says, what are you talking about? Right. He says, the lender says, you owe me $100. The person says, I paid you back 50. Right. Then witnesses come and say he actually paid back 100. So the Gemara says that since the borrower said, right, admitted that he paid back 50, he now needs to pay another 50. right? Even though there are witnesses who say 100, but he, in his own testimony, said that he owes 50. Again, this is only from land that he is in possession of right now. There's a machloket if he needs to swear. Again, if the witnesses can prove his claim, so then this is not a regular testimony, and therefore it's a machloket if he needs to swear or not. Okay, Daf 129. If you gave a gift, but you also used the word inheritance, right? Remember, we learned last week there's a difference, right? Inheritance goes to specific people. Gift can go to anybody. So let's say you want to give a gift, but you use the word inherit. As long as the word gift is in the statement, either the beginning, the middle, or the end, then it is a valid gift. But if you're giving two separate things, right, this is the gift and this is the inheritance, so then it doesn't work. Right? If you use the word gift for one and inheritance for the other, you can't do that. Or maybe you can do that, right? But if it's two fields to two separate people, so then it's an invalid statement, right? I'm going to give a gift to so-and-so, and I'm going to bequeath to so-and-so, right, my inheritance, so then that might be invalid. There's a machloket about what Rabbi Yochanan holds about two people and two fields. Reish Lakish says they don't get the fields till he uses the word gift in both statements. Or it only works with one person and one field. But if it's two people and two fields and two different mechanisms, so then that's already too complicated. Let's say a person is on their deathbed, and we're going to see more about this in a little bit. This in Hebrew is called a shchiv meira, which means that they have a certain law about their case, right? A person who is about to die, he is allowed to make statements, and we treat it as if he wrote it down in a document, even though it was only verbal, right? The idea is because he is about to die, we have certain leniencies. So if the person is on their deathbed, or if he's traveling, right, and we're not going to see him, and he says, give my sons a shekel a week. And it would be good if you gave them 2 shekel, right? Meaning, and that means like if they need more, so give them more. So then you give them 2 shekel a week. If he says only give them 1 shekel, so then you only give them 1 shekel. If a father said, give the remainder of my estate to, right, my neighbor across the street, right? It shows that he wants to save money, right? Because he wants to make sure that that person gets the inheritance, and therefore you only give the kids 1 shekel a week. If a person received, if the person who's receiving a gift, the gift that the person left for them, if he stands to inherit him, so then he doesn't need the word gift in the statement because he could also get it as the inheritance. A person can say, when I die, my estate goes to you, and then I want it to go to my neighbor across the street. And then I want you to give it to my first grade teacher, right? You can decide who you want to give your estate to. And then as each person dies, it transfers to the next person. What happens if like person number 2 dies before person number 1? So then it stays in person number 1's inheritance. Basically, right, again, he says, I want you to give it to Reuven, and then I want you to give it to Shimon, and then I want you to give it to Levi, right? And then all of a sudden, right, the person dies, they give it to Reuven, and then Shimon dies before Reuven. So now, because basically the line was cut, it stays in Reuven's family, right? It doesn't jump to Levi. It goes to Reuven's children because it was basically stopped. This proves that it's like 2 fields to 2 different people, right? Each person acquires what they're supposed to get. Um, and right, then the Gemara says, well, maybe it's different, right? If number one gets it as a gift and number 2 and 3 get it as an inheritance, so then they should get it, right? Because again, it's two different mechanisms. Let's say a person says, my estate to you and then to so and so. Now, he didn't use the word gift and he didn't use the word inheritance. So if the first person is fit to inherit, so then it goes to the first person and then it does not go to number 2. It stays in number 1's family because right, it goes to number 1's heirs because you can't interrupt inheritance. The reason this is because the person who died didn't say, this is a gift to you, right? Because he just said, you're going to get it. We don't know if it means a gift or an inheritance. And therefore, because he could inherit him, we say maybe it's an inheritance and it goes to his children. Again, if the statement of 2 people and 2 fields were made at the same time, so then they're both valid. And if not, so then they're not. Okay, Daf 130, we have a new Mishnah. If a person says, right, Reuven is going to inherit me, and it's instead of his daughter, right? Let's say he doesn't have any sons, he has one daughter, and he says, I want you to give my money to Reuven, right? Or my daughter is going to inherit me, and he really has sons as well. This is invalid because it's going against a condition that the Torah made, right? The Torah says when a man dies, the inheritance goes to the sons. And this Mishnah seems to be saying that the daughter cannot inherit when there are sons. Now, if you notice, the issue was because he used the word inherit. My daughter will inherit me, right? And not my sons. That doesn't work. You could give a gift to your daughter, but you can't make her inherit if there are sons there. So the Mishnah says if you go against what the Torah says, so then it's invalid. Or if he's giving someone who could have inherited him, so then it is valid. If not, so then he can't. So now the Gemara is going to explain, right? But right, again, he could give his entire estate to one son out of many, or to one daughter out of many daughters, right? But he can't give it to the daughter if there are sons. Right? Or another option is he could give it to the daughter if there are sons, because she would inherit him if there weren't any boys, but he's not allowed to give it to the uncle, right? Again, because that's 2 steps removed. Or the machloket is about if he can give his entire estate to one son out of many sons, and then some say, no, that of course he could do, but Chachamim say he can't. And he is not allowed, then he's not allowed to do that. The halacha is he can give to one son out of many, or one daughter out of many. And that again, the Torah gives the power to the father to divide the estate. This is based on a verse. Okay. Next, Rava says to Rav Papa, if you disagree with my ruling, so then you tell me. Right? And if I agree, I'll retract it. And if not, I'll explain myself. So there's a whole like back and forth between Rava and Rav Papa at the bottom of Daf 130. Okay. Now the Gemara asks on Daf 131, can a healthy person also bequeath disproportionately? Remember we said a shchiv meira, someone who is on their deathbed, they can basically do whatever they want. What about a healthy person? Can they also redistribute their estate? Right. So again, is it only the shchiv meira or anybody? So the Gemara says maybe only with a gift, as we said. You're always allowed to give a gift, but not an inheritance. So the Gemara says that So just to remind ourselves, there is this concept, we've learned it before, called banin dichrin, which literally means the male children, right? Like zachar, zacharim, the male children. Um, this is something that, let's say a woman comes into a second marriage, the husband agrees, right? He signs a document saying, I agree that your children will inherit you, and they will get their what's coming for them, right? Their inheritance. So the Gemara says that even if the husband didn't write it in the ketuvah, it still applies, meaning they still have the right to her estate. And so here we see that this is a gift, and the gift is given, right, even when someone is healthy. So the Gemara says, no, because this is something that's different. You can't compare the two things. Again, banin dichrin is a condition that the court system set up because it can't work otherwise, right? It doesn't really make sense for it to work because the kids, right? Let's say even if let's say the kids don't even exist yet, right? Let's say the kids are from this marriage, so then you can't legally leave them anything, but the courts give them the right to inherit their mother, even if it's not written in the ketuvah. Okay, if the father leaves support for his daughters, right, not an inheritance, but support, so then it's a gift and it works, right? And yes, let's say a shchiv meras, person who is on their deathbed, writes to give, right? He says, write down to give all of my property to my wife. So the Gemara explains that if he's doing this, he really just wants to make her the administrator over the estate. It's not that he wanted to give her everything and the children don't get anything. It's that she is going to determine who gets what, right? Again, from the sons, right? She decides what the children need, and she will divvy up the estate. The idea here is he wants the children to respect her. But what's interesting is the Gemara says it doesn't mean that he meant to leave all the money to her and not to his children. The same is if he gave his entire estate to his oldest son. It doesn't really mean he wanted to give him everything. Rather, he's giving him the ability to divide it. So again, this seems to be different than what we said before, that the father is allowed to leave a disproportionate amount of his estate to different children. Interestingly, here the Gemara says if he leaves all of it to one person, right? Again, one of his sons or his wife, it must be that he didn't mean to give it all to them, but rather that they were going to divide it. Okay. If he gives it to his fiance or his divorce, like his divorced wife, his wife that he divorced, so then it's clearly a gift because there's no reason he would make his fiance or his divorced wife, his previous wife, an administrator of the property. If he leaves it to his daughter and he has sons, or he leaves it to his wife, but he has brothers, or his wife when he has sons from another wife, they do not inherit, right? Or maybe they all do, except for the wife, if there are brothers or if there are sons. So that seems to be a difference of opinion. Okay, Daf 132. The question is, as we asked before, does this also work if the husband is healthy, meaning not on his deathbed, right? If he's alive, so then he can make sure that they honor her. Therefore, if he's giving his entire estate to his wife, it must be that he's giving her a gift and he's not making her the administrator. That's the question. So the Gemara says, well, right, if the husband gave produce or right to land while he was alive, it's seen as a gift. And when he dies, she can collect her ktuva from the rest of the estate. If there is a lien on the land and a creditor comes to collect the land that she was gifted, so then she lets him take it because there was a lien on the land. But, okay, so that's number one. But if the husband dies, she still has a lien. Right? Again, the husband gave her a gift of this property. There was a lien on the land from a creditor. The creditor came to take the land, and she has to let him take it. But if the husband dies, she can go back to the creditor and say, I had a lien on this land first for my ktuva. So now give me my land back because it's rightfully mine. Okay. Now the Gemara suggests that, wait a minute, when she accepts a piece of land as a gift when the husband is alive, then she's actually giving up her rights to her ktuva, because it's as if he gave her her ktuva already now. Therefore, if the creditor comes to take it away, she can't go back to get it as her ktuva, because when she accepted it in the first place, she gave up her rights to collect it as her ktuva. The Gemara says, wait a minute, but then it's lose-lose. Like she loses out on her ktuva, she loses out on the gift. Like that's not fair. So the Gemara says, this case actually proves that even if a healthy husband gives the land, it does become a gift, and she is not seen as the administrator of the property. And the Gemara says, no. Maybe when this happened, he was on his deathbed. He was not a healthy man, right? And the halakha is that if she accepts the land as a gift when he is still alive, she gives up her rights to collect her ktuva. So the Gemara says we actually there's a machloket if we take into account the person's intent, right? What were they trying to do? Was he just giving a gift? Happy 50th birthday, here's a piece of land. Or was he saying, I don't want to pay your ktuva, so take this land instead, right? The halacha is that we do take a person's intent into account, and we assume that when the husband gives the property to the wife, she's very happy with the honor that he gave her, and therefore she is willing to give up her rights to her ktuva, right? Because again, at this moment, she becomes a landowner. And according to the Gemara, she is happy to have that. If a man gives his estate to his sons and one piece of land to his wife, so then she can't collect her ktuva from the rest of the estate. Again, as soon as he gives her the land, it's as if she gives up her rights to getting the ktuva from the estate. The Gemara says, wait a minute, what if it doesn't, it isn't the value of her ktuva, right? What if he just gives her a little tiny, I don't know, playground or garden? So the Gemara says, so the Gemara is like, well, you're right. Let's see. If she did a kinyan chalipin, right, a way of acquiring the land for the sons, and she got a small piece of land, right? She says to the kids, okay, your father died. I'm gonna take like this land, and when I take this land, you get the estate, right? If she's doing that, she's showing that she's okay with them getting the estate and her getting this small piece of land. And that proves that she's giving up her rights to collect her ktuva. Or maybe the case is the husband made this transfer and she didn't say anything. So how could you say that she's giving up her rights if she didn't say anything? Or he says, right, take this land as your ktuva statement. Okay, then it's very clear that it is for her ktuva, right? Or maybe only if she accepts the gift as her ktuva, right? She has to know that it's for her ktuva, and he writes it over to her. But if he didn't write anything down, it doesn't count as her ktuva. Or another opinion, she needs to accept it as her ktuva, and if she doesn't lose her rights. Or last one, as long as the husband makes her a partner with the sons, so then she loses her rights to collect the ktuva from the estate. Okay, we're not sure if this is the same law if he's healthy. Remember, again, we were trying to make a distinction between healthy and a shchiv meira. Maybe if she was silent, she thinks he will acquire maybe more land later that she can collect from, so she doesn't necessarily give up her rights. If the husband even gives her, so then the Gemara says, wait, no, even if the husband gives her one palm tree, and she takes it, she loses her rights to her ktuva. And then the Gemara says, no, only if he gives her land or produce that's attached to the tree. But if he gives her something that's movable, it doesn't count. Okay, if the shchiv meira, the person on their deathbed, divides his estate between two daughters and the wife, again, she loses her rights to the other land, right? The same idea. Okay, Daf 133. This is, I think, right, this is, hold on one second. Oh no, Daf 33, two more. Daf 133, 134. Okay, Daf 133. If one of the daughters dies before the father, so then the wife does get a portion of that land, right? It goes back into the pot and it gets redivided. Okay, let's say the shchiv meira divides the estate between the sons and the wife and left out one date tree. So then she can collect her ktuva from that tree, right? Not from the land that was given to the sons, because as soon as she gets her other land, she gives up her rights to the estate that's given to the sons. Or because she can collect from the tree, maybe she can also collect from the estate that was given to the sons. If a person left his estate to someone else, right? Again, to my across the street neighbor. If the across the street neighbor is also a relative, so we see it as an inheritance. And if not, then it's a gift, right? Again, because he didn't specify. Remember, like we said in the beginning, if you don't specify gift or inheritance, so then we have to look who the person is, right? What's the practical application? If it's an inheritance, then the widow gets supported from that estate. If it's just a gift, so then the widow does not get supported from that money. But right, this gift is only dirabanan, right? It's only rabbinic, and the wife is supposed to be supported deoraita, right, from the Torah. Therefore, the wife should be supported either way. So what does it matter? Therefore, the Gemara says, okay, maybe another application is, let's say he says, give it to my neighbor, and then give it to the other neighbor afterwards. Now, if the person, again, we saw this before, if the first person is actually a relative, so we see it as Yerusha, as an inheritance, and then number two doesn't get anything, right? Because we don't take it away from, we don't take inheritance away from an heir, right? But again, if it's a gift, so then we do. Okay. Next Mishnah. If a person gives away his estate and he leaves his sons without any inheritance, it's valid, right? You are allowed to give away your estate. But the sages say this is not a nice thing to do, to leave your children without an inheritance. Or another opinion is, right, if the sons are not good people, right, or they don't behave, so then it's okay, right? It's okay to disinherit them. So now the Gemara is going to talk about, is it okay to disinherit your child, right? Is it a good parenting tool? So the Gemara says we're not sure if the second statement disagrees with the first, right? Meaning you're only allowed to disinherit your child if they're not good kids. But if they're good kids, then you don't have the right to do it, right? So now we have a few stories. So Yossi ben Yoezer disinherited his son, and right, he had like a bag of gold, and the father decides to sanctify the bag of gold and disinherit his son. He said that the son was not behaving properly. He wasn't good, and he wasn't doing good things, and therefore he disinherited him. So then the son went and married the crown maker's daughter, and then they found a jewel in a fish, which reminds us of a story in Masechet Shabbat. And basically, she advises him what to do. Right? She says, take it to the temple, to the Beit HaMikdash, and you're going to sell it there to the Beit HaMikdash, and you're going to make a lot of money. So they say it's worth 13 bags of gold, but they only have 6 bags in the treasury. So he's like, you know what? Fine, give me 6, and you can have the other 7, right? So basically, he sanctifies 7 and he takes 6. So the Gemara, right, criticizes here, right, or puts in a statement, right? One opinion is, right, again, he takes 6 bags of gold from the treasury, but he leaves 7. So is he good or is he bad? So one opinion is the Gemara seems to say it's all because the father disinherited him. So opinion number 1 is the father did the right thing. Right, he disinherited the son. The son married a good woman, and he does tshuva. Look how good he is. He gave 7 bags of gold to the temple, right? And it's all because his father disinherited him. Another opinion is he didn't do good because he disinherited him, and then he married a bad woman, and look how bad he was. He took 6 bags of gold from the Beit HaMikdash, right, from the temple. So I think it's just fascinating. I think you could do a whole study on this story of, right, how we interpret statements in the Gemara, stories in the Gemara, right? The same story, some people say, oh, it was so good, and the other people say it was so bad. Okay, another story, a man gave his estate to Yonatan ben Uziel. We're going to hear who he is in a minute. And then Yonatan Uziel, when he got the estate, he sold half, he sold a third, he sanctified a third, and then he gave a third to the heirs of the person who died. Right, and he said, you gave it to me as a gift. No, he didn't say the guy because the guy died, but he said, I got it as a gift. I can do whatever I want. Shammai came, right? Remember Hillel and Shammai, right? So Shammai comes and he starts screaming, and he says, this is terrible that you gave the money back to the kids. Again, this is coming back based on what we just said. The father was trying to disinherit the kids, and you just gave the money back to the kids. So, right, he said, this isn't right. Right, and Shammai basically was saying that the gift that he gave to Yonatan ben Uziel was conditional that the sons wouldn't get anything. But Yonatan Uziel said that was not the case. Okay, last daf, right? Another case proved that if a gift is given and the person, a different case proves that if you gave a gift and the person who got the gift can sanctify it, the item that you gave them, so then it's a valid gift. But if you can't, right, if I say, here, I'm giving you a gift, as long as you give it back to me tomorrow, is that really a gift or not? Right? Do you have the right to sanctify it or not? If you do, then it's a good gift. And if you don't, then it's not a good gift. Okay, now who is this Yonatan ben Uziel? The Gemara tells us that Hillel Hazaken had 80 students. Some of them were as great as Moshe, some were like Yoshua, some were in between, right? And Yonatan ben Uziel was the best of the students, right? So that's how great this sage was. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who is, one of the greatest sages of all time, he was the weakest student of Hillel Hazaken, right? So it shows you how great these students are, and how great is Yonatan ben Uziel. When he was learning, if birds flew over his head, they would burn up, right? That's how he was so passionate about his Torah, he would shoot, I guess, like lasers out of his head. Okay, last Mishnah, as as we've seen before, a person is believed to say that this is his son, but not to say this is my brother. Again, let's say he says, right, again, let's say this person is Reuven. He has a brother, Shimon. And all of a sudden he says, oh, Levi just came into town. By the way, Shimon, Levi's our brother. So we don't really believe him. But the Mishnah says, Reuven is allowed to share his own portion of the estate with Levi, right? If he wants to do that, he can do that. But Shimon doesn't have to share it with Levi. Shimon doesn't know who this Levi guy is. But if Levi dies, right, the new brother, if he dies, so then the property goes back to Reuven and Shimon. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, again, a person is believed to say, this is my son, so that he can inherit him, and also to relieve his wife of having to do yibum. Remember, if they have a child, so then she doesn't need to do yibum. So he's believed to say this is his son. Again, it teaches that he can release her, even if it goes against chazaka. Remember, if you can say they've lived in the town for 10 years and he never said that they have a child, and all of a sudden he says he has a child, we do believe him in this case. Right, again, the man is believed to say, I have a son, to get her out of yibum. Again, because if he wanted to, he could just divorce her. So he can get her out no matter what. Again, therefore, he's believed also to say that he divorced her. Or maybe we don't believe when he says he divorced her, because if he divorced her, everyone would know about it, right? There'd be rumors about it. And if there are no rumors, so then we don't believe him that he divorced her. The Gemara says, no, maybe there's a distinction. We don't believe a person to say he divorced his wife a month ago, right, in the past, but we do believe him if he says, I just divorced her now, like, or it says in the future, but it means now. And then there's a machloket if we can split his statement, right? We don't believe him that he divorced her in the past, right? Therefore, if he says in the future, right, we also don't believe him. Or maybe we do believe him in that case, right? And then there was a case based on this machloket, right? A man says, this man slept with my wife. Now, we can't accept testimony of a husband about his wife, right? But we can accept testimony of the husband about the other guy. So the question is, can we split the statements? Can we say we believe him about or we are accepting his statement about the adulterer, but not about his wife, because he can't testify about his wife? So the Gemara says yes, but in this case, it's okay because we're talking about two separate people, right? He's giving testimony about his wife and about the adulterer. But in our case, he was talking about the same person, right? I divorced her, right, today. Now, if he would have said I divorced her last week, we wouldn't have believed him at all. So can I divide the statement to say, I believe, we believe one part of the statement, but not the other part of the statement. And the Gemara says in that case, because we're still talking about one person, so then we do not believe him to make that statement, and therefore it is not acceptable testimony. And with that, I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. I'm happy we have a few minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Amen. Okay, now, did you call on me? Can I do it?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember when you said Reuben's the firstborn, clear up through 10 years, and all of a sudden Levi comes back? Okay, so it signifies that time is significant. So the question I have, it's related to that. It was my granddaughter, no, it was my great-granddaughter. She was converted, but she was only 2 years old. I have heard from an Orthodox rabbi that if she turns 12 years and 1 day, and on that day says, "Are you kidding? I just learned in school what happened to all the Jews, and I don't want to be one of them." Does that nullify the conversion?
It's a great question. We will deal with it. We will deal with it in the Gemara. The Gemara does speak about conversion.
Okay, I can wait.
When you convert a child, when they become 12 and a day, they need to reaffirm their conversion. Now, that does not have to be done in one minute. That does
Okay.
not have to be done in an official capacity. Right? They say that if a girl is 12 and a day and she keeps Shabbos, that Shabbos, she's showing that she wants to be Jewish. As soon as she does that, if she turns 13 and then she says, "No, I don't want to do this anymore," that's it.
It took. Okay.
Exactly.
So publicly, she did do one thing. She wrote an essay, and in the essay, she had to come up with a word starting with the letter S. And she goes, "Oh," and she's not very old. She's only, I think she's 8. She says, "Oh, Shoshi is my Hebrew name," and she publicly told everybody at 8 years old.
But
so
she's
she had
still
some
not
identity.
an adult. She's still not an adult. Meaning
I know.
at 12, she has to again, like, just be happy that she's Jewish and she's fine.
Okay, I'm going to go on that because I'll be the one that she'll.
Don't quote me. Don't quote me. I'm not. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not. I'm not making.
Your guess is better than anybody else's.
Yeah. Zohar, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi. Any other questions? But we will speak about that. We will see those cases.
How long have we been studying? I didn't catch brachot.
4.5 years.
Okay, 4 years. All right. Thank you.
We started.
Do you hear the background noise? Do you hear the background noise here?
Oh, I don't hear anything.
Oh, wait, let me
No.
I hear you. I hear you down here.
Do you hear?
They're demonstrating outside in the street.
Oh, what are they saying?
Something about the hostages
Oh,
Kulanu Yehudim, but something negative about Netanyahu.
poor guy.
Oh, you have to tell everybody
He's only
that she lives
human.
down the
He's
block.
only human.
She lives down the block from Netanyahu, so she gets to hear all the fun things.
So it's giving us a headache.
It probably has to do with with him firing Gallant. Okay.
Yeah. But back to our learning. We have been learning since January
Welcome back.
2020. Thank you. We've been learning for 20.
I joined in Eruvin.
So that's a little later. But we've been studying. This class has been going on since January 2020, which is very funny because when they asked me if I wanted to do it, I said I would do it for 3 months.
Thank you for staying, Baruch atah Adonai. Well, if you don't do it again next year, would you please give me your notes for brachot because I missed it?
Oh, you can go back. You can go back and listen to everything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The computer will help me. I don't believe in artificial intelligence, even though it's in everybody's life. It's scary.
It's all uploaded. It's all uploaded, so everything is there.
Okay.
From brachot.
Thank you.
Has anyone here been doing it since brachot?
I've been here the whole time. Yes, the beginning. January 5, 2020.
Okay.
Cycle 14 of Daf Yomi began. I was there.
Yes.
In less than 3, it finishes in less than 3 years. On Shavuot, actually, right before Shavuot.
Okay.
It's a 7-year cycle, isn't it?
It's a 7.5-year cycle. So you should all be booking your tickets to come to Israel so we can all celebrate together.
Your lips to God's ears.
Ezrat Hashem.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Next week, regular time, Be'ezrat Hashem. Wednesday, regular time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful summary. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.